Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is Patrick here, Eggnoc Poker. New video today. I've got plenty of videos to go through. I've got as always, I've still got my 100 and 200 NL videos to post. They are still coming. I've got 2 more review sessions also to post. So I've got this session and also 1 more review, and I will be posting the 100 and 200 NL very, very soon. I promise when I get around to doing them, they will be uploaded for you. Just a quick shout out to everyone. I am streaming almost every single day, trying to stream at least one or 2 hours every day, a bit more if I can get the chance to, and I will be streaming on Twitch. The link is in the description below, and thank you to everyone so far who's been following, subscribing, being members of the Discord, and just generally following the process. The streaming's been pretty fun. We're up to like 430, starting off at $40 about 6 months ago, give or take. We took a break from the challenge, came back, and we've been smashing it recently on 5 and 10 and we'll be doing our 25 and shots soon, so good fun. And yeah, so join in on the action with those. Really, really good. Just very quickly, if you guys could leave a like and a comment on the YouTube video today, that would be absolutely fantastic. Just very quickly before we start, just go and say hello, leave a like, leave a comment. It would really help me out as we are on our quest to master the universe and nearly get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so we've got Mr. Kaplr8 for our review today, and it will be on NL2 Zoom on PokerStars. I've been doing many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours over the last year or 2 on this one, doing tons and tons of GTO drills. So I'm sure, no doubt, not to sound entitled, but I've been probably somewhat of a menace to a lot of people on this site. Also probably somewhat of a calling station, making GTO cooldowns versus people who don't really have bluffs. Not really the best way to do it, but extremely good for practice. But yeah, so as far as I'm aware with GTO versus exploitative on NL2, we're going to be pretty much applying tons of really, really good theory with loads of aggression and tons of folding, loads of bluffing and loads of folding. That's basically how to crush the micro stakes. Anyway, let's have a look at how Mr. Kaplr8 plays. So without further ado, let's get started. So as always, I'll try not to stop the video too much. I will stop when I need to, just to go over anything important, but I will try and make the video run the best I can. So easy 3-bet here with our King Queen suited. We do go ahead and 3-bet. Lovely to see. Anywhere between 9 and 10 would be good. Don't mind I swing the A6 off. Don't mind folding. Maybe go about 4.5 just to save ourselves a little bit of money. I think 4 to 4.5 does the same job as 5. But still completely fine to isolate there. King 9 off in the cutoff, I believe could be an open at a small frequency. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead of myself. Here we go. Love to see that we've got fast fold in play. Very, very easy to get small hands per hour in. Really good. Just very quickly, let's not have... I don't think we're doing it for these reasons either, but we don't really want to develop a limping range in the small blind at the micro stakes. The rake is too high. People are too passive. We just want to be attacking the fact that people are just folding a lot, and we don't want to give people free equity. So, for example, we limp ace 10, they check back jack 6 offsuit, and they realize a good sort of pretty hefty percentage on the flop in position for free. So, with a good hand, I would just be raising and looking to get some value and build a bit of a pot. As played, I would just be looking mostly to be checking, maybe some small betting. Make the nuts. I would just start betting now. I very, very much doubt that Villain would be delayed betting this and then having a hand strong enough to call a check raise. And now we definitely need to be betting. So A7 here on table 2. Let's see what Hero's doing. Okay, so just very quickly, this is just very quickly overall, this is a study versus unstudy thing. Just generally with the small blind calling ranges. Again, for anyone who's interested, the small blind is going to be condensed. They're not going to have, at least in theory, it's going to be a little bit different exploitatively, but just in general, the small blind's very condensed with a lot of very, very strong and medium pocket pairs. Some Broadway cards, some suited connectors, etc., etc. Very condensed, not going to have a bunch of Queen Jack offsuit and King 5 suited and whatnot. So we need to be a bit careful with what our sizings are. So just generally here, if I was going to be betting the flop, which I think is completely fine, we can get some better ace highs to fold. You can get some hands like 4s, 6s, 8s. We can put a lot of pressure on those over multiple streets. We do block ace queen, which is a good start. Got a backdoor flush draw, etc., etc. If I was going to be betting these textures, it would generally be a bit bigger, sort of medium to large, or checking. I would think I'd prefer betting with this combination, but I think checking would be completely fine also. I think a small bet doesn't accomplish too much and allows villain to continue too easily. And just as played here, we're snap checking back. So what we want to be thinking about, if we bring this back to the flop, is the idea is we're saying, look, your hand is quite nice here actually, because you're blocking ace queen and ace jack of spades, which is two of villain's better calls and continues. A larger size would have put pressure on the small pairs, and then we attack the turn with them. Because we've blocked, you allow more hands to float the flop. You now block folds, but you still attacking, like we can still represent a good queen. We still block ace queen. We should have really got raised by a 5, etc. So we're probably doing very well in terms of what hands we can attack. Small to medium pocket pairs, anything under the queen. So really we should now be continuing on the turn. And then all we're looking to do is just to fold out, like, again, pocket 3s, pocket 4s, pocket 5s, pocket 6s, etc. But a more optimal line would have been to a bet larger on the flop. But again, as played, checking back turn will now be fine. Not sure, I mean, versing check, I'm not sure if we would actually now attack the river because we look extremely weak, so we'd need to go and overbet or check, I would assume, as played. But river, I'd just be basically folding now. But the larger flop bet into a turn probe would have been nice, I think. Ace 10, yeah, I would be defending this very easily with some 3-betting. Even against a 3x, I think I would still be defending that one. King 10, easy open. King Queen Jack, Queen Jack 10 if we speak English. Just very quickly, I know we are multi-way, but this board is extremely good for you. So just very quickly, really we should be at least, like, I dare say range betting, but effectively range betting. Betting extremely often with a lot of our range, if not all of it, because we have 10s, jacks, queens, ace, king, pure. We have more ace jack offs than the button, for example. We're expecting to be 3-bet by a bunch of the best hands in this range a lot. Also, your exact hand is blocking king 9, it's blocking a set of 10s, it's blocking queen 10 and jack 10. It's a really, really good hand to have as a multi-street bluff set up from the flop. So actually, betting the flop almost immediately for a small to medium size would actually be better than checking. We don't want to assume this is showdown. You have a hand which is losing to a bunch of hands that you can make fold by the end. You have a hand that's blocking villain's top of range. If we were to bet small, overbet turn into overbet shove river, you would get a massive amount of folds, and you would do the exact same thing with a lot of your straights and top end value also. So I would like to see a bet here rather than a check call. As played, just for the sake of argument, again, I'm actually thinking because you have a 10 rather than a jack or a queen, and you block again like king 9, king queen, queen 10, etc., etc. As we said, I'd actually like to see a check raise here. I suppose you could occasionally check call, but I would think you'd prefer to check raise now. Put massive pressure on hands like ace jack, which is being merged by the population. Put pressure on a hand like ace 10, which is being merged. You can fold out some weird hands like 10-8 of diamonds that the villains merge with. I suppose we beat 10-8 of diamonds, but hands similar to that, sorry, that we either beat or have a relatively large amount of equity against us. You could also delay check raise the turn. Against this smallish, sort of 40% size, I would prefer to actually raise the turn. I'm not, as played, you can't really fold. You've got too much equity, you're getting too good of a price. You should really continue the turn. Let's have a look at what's happening here with the 9-7 offsuit. I'm assuming this is a limp pot. Yes, it is. Checking flop is okay. I don't mind betting. I definitely like going ahead and attacking the turn. We are almost always certainly ahead, and we want to protect our equity. We don't want to check, allow him to check back. We can definitely get value from potentially some ace high floats, maybe some flush draws, potentially a weaker 7, pocket 5s, pocket 4s, and then just protect our hand also. I suppose also some gut shots, ace 4, ace 5, 4-6, etc. that didn't bet. Versus this raise, villain's only really representing, like, in a limp pot, like, it's not really easy to represent anything, to be honest. I would just call this. Not thrilled with being raised, but after this has gone check, check, and then bet with a smallish raise, I would just think we're almost always winning. Yeah, it's just some kind of bluff, probably a flush draw or something like that. Few spots here. Just very quickly, again, like table 2, again, this is more of a studied thing, but this board is not really the hijack's opening range very much. We don't really interact with the 9-6-4 that often. We will have ace 9, king 9, queen 9, jack 9, 10, 9, 8, 9s. We'll have 9s, we'll have 6s and 4s, but a lot of our range, that's a very small portion of our range compared to a massive amount of it completely missing or not hitting in an extremely strong way. So, for example, the cutoff won't have hands like kings, aces, for example, or queens and jacks as much. However, their range is very condensed. It's going to contain a very small amount of hands compared to ours. And I know this is NL2, not GTO, but just as a thing, you can checking here to check call, checking here to check raise, excuse me, plays infinitely better than just betting, getting called, and developing way too many c-bets later down the line. It's very easy to just want to c-bet for the sake of c-betting, but technically speaking, a solver would want you just to check here and get to the turn. You could check call, check raise, mix, you could do anything you want. Yeah, so for example, like spots like this is actually almost exactly what I'm talking about. Our hand will continue versus this size small check raise because we've got so much turned equity. We can also just be ahead still. We are wrapped around the 9 and the 6. We've got the backdoor flush draw, etc. And ace high is usually good here, at least some of the time versus a small raise. Really, we should now just be continuing as a call. What we're trying to do now is realize our backdoor equity on the turn because we're unblocking all of villain's value, 9, 6s, 4s, etc. We're not making him fold to anything at all. In fact, we're actually folding some of the hands that we're blocking some of the hands that may fold. Yeah, not thrilled with the bet 3-bet there. I would literally prefer to check call, check raise, mix. If you do bet and get raised, either folding or calling to try and realize the backdoor equity sometimes would be preferable. Remember, if villain's representing strength and you've got a hand that can outdraw him, it's usually often good to just call and try and realize that equity rather than sort of smash it into him. Especially as he's much more condensed. Also, if he's bluffing, you want him to keep bluffing in a lot of situations with a lot of hands also. I suppose for the 3-bet size you could consider folding. I kind of like the idea of a 4-bet here, but this is an extremely large 3-bet size from the cutoff. If we were going to 4-bet this, I suppose something like 21 would be pretty nice. 22, 23, something like that. I don't also mind folding just because of the size if we got no information, but I think this is a pretty decent spot to go ahead and potentially 4-bet. Maybe somewhat aggressive for NL2, but I feel like that's a spot I might go after, especially considering with stars we can avoid rake pre. Easy defend with the jack 9. Yeah, so we need to be careful with our folding. We folded the ace 10 and the jack 9 in the big blind. We need to loosen up our big blind defense. We're getting run over somewhat if we're folding that. Also 5-7 suited on the button there. That would be an easy open. Okay, so ace queen here. It is okay. So just as a thing, it is okay to bet this texture with a hand like ace queen as long as you have a heart in it some of the time, because you can. This is pseudo value. You can absolutely get called by gut shots, worse overcards with a 10 or a 5 with an 8. You've got equity against like one pair and things like this. You can also potentially call a check raise. Your hand would probably fold and you defend with the ace of hearts more often, but you can absolutely go ahead and bet this sometimes because the board is so extremely coordinated versus the big blind. You would really actually size down. Up to half is a thing, but I think mostly just small sizing would be a little bit more optimal. But betting is completely fine. But just be careful that you're not just c-betting everything for the sake of betting it. So just be a little bit careful, because that hand's often going to be ahead but vulnerable to check raises. Easy ISO with the aces. Just very quickly, I'm going to say it because I've noticed it. I don't know if this is because you know that you have a better hand than the last one, but last time you squeezed this position, you went 5. This time we go 4. So I don't know if you know that, but like no one's going to pick up in that. But just for the sake of it, just be wary that you have sizing differences based on your hand strength. So just, I mean, it doesn't matter for now, but it might become a thing later on. So just... Well, I would just pick a size which you want to use to isolate anywhere from like 4 to 5 against the UTG limp, and then just stick to it. That's the easiest way to say it. So on this board, the way I treat these, just as a thing quickly, is if someone limps and I isolate them, I treat it as, and if I'm out of position especially, but just across the board, I treat it as small blind, big blind. So I treat it as if they defended the big blind range in a single raise pot. That's kind of the way I look at it. So for example, on this texture, you could go ahead and bet really, really, really big, like over bets and large. You could go ahead and bet quite small to me. I don't think I go small, but anywhere from like medium to over bet to check call to check raise. You could do loads of stuff with the ace of diamonds, ace of spades combo. If I'm checking, I'm mainly check raising with this specific combo because you can just do so much with it. If I'm going to check call, it is okay. I think it's probably not making as much money as it could be at this population. Check calling flop, checking turn facing pot. Yeah, I agree with just calling. We could easily be ahead and actually check shove, but I think it's too aggressive for the population. Considering they're tighter overall versus like these large pot sizings, it's probably just better, safer to call and then sort of check decide what you want to do versus their river bets, if they make them, that is. The deuce is extremely good for you, so you now counterfeit hands like 10-9, 10-7, for example, and then obviously you're beating 10x anyway. So, for example, on that river, I'd probably just check jam for value. Don't think they're folding a 10. So here on the 776, yeah, I like the fact that we're checking the flop. So now, just as a thing, I just want to say this really quickly. So in terms of like what we want to do on the turn, strategically, there's because we do a lot of checking out of position, which is fine, by the way, which is what we should be doing on the flop. When we get to the turn, we go into this part of the game tree where we're saying we're checking really, really, really good hands deceptively, like large pairs, 7, 6s, on the turn pocket 4s now, and then aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s, things like this that are really strong. And then we have a lot of hands that will connect to the turn or wrap around the turn. So like ace 5, king 5, I suppose like we'll have some gut shots also, like 9-10, 10-8 suited. We'll have 4x. We'll have flush draws, and then also some of the weaker sort of double, either like weaker Broadway cards with a spade, like Jack 10 with a Jack of spades, for example. These are really good hands to now use to bet with, and then we'll still do a lot of conservative checking. Ace 10 is the thing is, so what I want to say is this is really quickly, because this is massive for people who are playing micro stakes. this is, I don't mean to sound nasty to Hero here, but this bet is really, really terrible because it doesn't, not to sound horrible, but just blunt force trauma with poker coaching is always the best. Your hand is too strong / too weak to bet. So when you bet, you do, okay, theoretically, technically speaking, you do get called maybe by some weaker hands, but what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a situation where you're going to bet. If you don't improve, betting just folds out worse. You get called by better. And you can get bluffed if you check the river, potentially. Also, your hand is just winning here a lot. So if you're betting here, you're saying that you're just bluffing your entire range, essentially. Because this isn't a value bet. This is some weird merge. Also, the size is far too small. So if I had ace-10 with the ace of spades, I'd probably still just check anyway, to be honest. Because it's still just strong showdown that can actually just call and then potentially bluff some rivers. Or just win. Ace-10 off with no spade is just a check. That's all it should be. If you had a part of your range that would want to bet the turn, you would actually kind of go into this sort of like 75 to 150% size because you're very polarized. You don't have super amount of hands that want to bet if you're playing properly, and the sizes that they want to choose are very large and very polarized. So this is not really a thing. So betting larger would be better here, but this hand candidate would just check. Anyway, let's carry on. So we get into the position where we're in exactly the now what spot. If villain's got a hand like anything, queen jack of spades, he can just bluff. If he bets, we have no idea where we're at. And it's just in a very weird spot. Like at least if it went check, check, flop, check, check, turn, we get to the river and then we decide what we want to do. Whereas when we bet the flop, check the flop, bet the turn, small and check, we just look like exactly what we have. So it's very, very easy for villain to play against us and not what we want to be doing theoretically either. So, yeah. So really you should have just gone check on the turn. Burning the midnight oil. These energy drinks are going to be the death of me, I swear to God. They don't half taste good, though. Okay, so we flopped the nuts on table 2. That's a good start. I'd like to see a small to medium bet. Nice. And then we're going to be doing lots of extremely large turn sizings. Now, I would love to see an overbet on the turn. Okay, so just again very quickly, there's nothing like, just as a general thing, there's nothing wrong with just going big here. There's nothing wrong at all. You want to be going big. But just as a thing, just for the sake of saying it, technically speaking, you just want to be overbetting this. You don't want to be betting large. You don't want to be checking and trapping. You don't want to be betting small to keep hands in. You just want to stick a lot of money in because villain's going to have tens. He's going to have king queen. He's going to have queen 10. He's going to have king jack. He's going to have queen jack. He's also going to have ace jack with you. But he's going to have loads of hands that can continue. Also, these boys don't really like to fold anything. But the idea really is because you're going to have hands, you know, like the previous hand we said with the bottom pair and the open ender and so on. You're actually using those like 2-pair set / straight blocker value cards aggressively as bluffs and multi-street bluffs. And then the hands that you use for value are literally the hands like this one, where you just have it, basically. So really, you should actually be going like 150 to 200% here, just fucking massive. And then you just stick it in on the river. Now, just exploitatively, I can see that he's got a smaller stack here. So I actually kind of like going 15 to 17, getting called, and then just sticking it in closely for a 1-to-1 SPR. But technically speaking, any kind of overbet is really what we're actually looking for. So, interesting. So we do get the call, and the river comes to 7. Just very quickly, I want to pause this because this is actually somewhat interesting river card. As played, because we've bet smaller, we now just have a clear jam. However, if this was versus a full stack, this is quite important for you guys. The board is paired. Can we be beat here? If, for example, we were against a 100 big blind opponent, we overbet the turn and they called, yes, we can be beat. Well, not only do we chop with ace jack, but we can be beat by 10-7 suited. King 7 suited and Queen 7 suited. So you would be somewhat selective with the combos that you choose. And you would also not pure overbet, sort of like shove the river either. So you'd have to be very careful with some of the selections that you choose and the frequency that you choose. And you'd prefer not, in this line, because you haven't overbet, you should just be pure shoving, in my opinion now. But in a different scenario with a deeper villain, you would not be looking to just sort of pure jam. You'd have to be quite careful with some of the suits. Anyway, so just as being played, yeah, so this also, like, you're betting big, fantastic, but if this guy's got a hand worthy of calling, you want all of it. You don't want 20, you want 43.5. We want to be greedy, we want to have bluffs, we don't want to get called, we want to steamroll and get the maximum, and we want to fold out hands when we're bluffing. So want to see a shove here, not sort of like an 80%, we just want to go all in. Easy 3-bet with the ace queen. Around sort of 7.5, that'd be good. Easy open with the ace 3. King 7 is a mixed open. We're not using an RNG, and this is NL2, so it doesn't make too much difference. But you'd be sort of mixing that sort of 40 to 60% of the time, give or take. King Jack off, we can mix between 3-bet and call. If we're 3-betting, we'd be going quite large, around sort of 13 and a half. Against pot, we just have to fold. We will be floating this with a decent amount of hands, but not versus full pot. We can fold king high there. We can have ace high with the ace of hearts with a jack, for example, rather than king jack. Speed this along a little bit, see if we can find any spots. Okay, so we're not defending the ace 10. We had two hands that folded, the jack 9 and the ace 10. 7-8 off is a pure fold versus the hijack open, especially a 3x. So this is very, I mean, you've been rewarded with a 7, but really we should have just folded pre. As played, I'd be looking to either lead the flop very, very often with a lot of my range, or I'd be check raising. Let's see what hero does. We do get the bet from villain. Also from villain, this is quite an atrocious bet, not to sound nasty, but really villain should be very conscious of the fact that we're in the big blind and we have a bit of an advantage with the 9 and especially the 7. So really, even with his aces and kings, for example, he should just be going small, like sort of, you know, anywhere from like 1 big blind up to say 3. I think 4.5 is just a bit big and unnecessary, but we will be looking to raise the 8-7. I suppose versus this size you could have some calls, especially some of the weaker 7x, but yeah, we're mostly just raising. I don't mind the size, this is okay. So as played, just want to say it as a thing, it's quite difficult to have an off, this is a funny board because it's quite difficult to have an offsuit 7 in this node. So we don't have a7, we don't really have a7 off a whole bunch. We don't really have 6-7 off. We don't have 8-7 off, king 7 off, 5-7 off. The only, like, we don't get here with an offsuit 7. So it's quite a weird node. If we had 6-7 of diamonds, we'd be looking to bet extremely small or check. 8-7, I would just treat this as 8-7 of diamonds. I'd bet extremely small or check. That's what I would be doing. And I would allow that to balance my checking range. I would also add some flushes into that checking range. Sometimes, but very rarely, have a 4 house in the checking range. I think I'd rather have flushes than boats in the checking range. And also in the block, we can have some hands as thin as a 7. We can have some bluffs and flush draws and so on, and some flushes in there as well. So we are protected. As long as you're protected, is all that matters. Checking is okay. Excuse me, but I'd like to mainly bet sort of 10 to 25% and sort of target like king, queen of spades, ace, queen of spades, aces, kings, 10s with a heart, things like that. Anyway, whatever, checking is okay, so no problem. Facing check back, it's very likely that in this population people do not trap flushes. I don't think they're trapping. I think he's very likely to have a 1 pair type holding, or maybe like an ace king or an ace jack or like king queen, something that's like kind of showdown orientated. I would think, or just, yeah, for him to like bet call the flop, he's got to have like a strong or a decent one pair here, with or without a heart. Or that's it pretty much, or an ace king type hand. So I would think that we're ahead, but I'm trying to think of what we can get called by and what our range would like to do. So as played, villain can have jacks, he can have queens, he can have nine. He can't have 9-7. He can have queens and jacks, and then obviously the flushes. I think if we're trying to get called by like king, jack, aces, kings, I think I would block. I think block is probably the best size on the paired board that we can do. And then I would protect this size with some flushes and some full houses as well, just so we can make sure we can call against like jams. Maybe even like 10 to 30% would be good here. Any kind of block would be nice. Half pot I think is a bit mergy. I would go lower, or we go bigger with my range. I think half's not particularly good. What I would want to do is either bet small and have traps and get called by more like one pair holdings, like aces, ace queen, king queen of spades, things like this, and then have bluff catches with some traps also. So, or bet bigger, yeah. So this is a bit of a mergy size, but this is very difficult to get called now, but you know, it is what it is. Also, I was going to say, the times you do get raised, you're putting more in, and you're also putting yourself at a size where range doesn't really want to go half pot. It wants to go smaller, get thin value and have traps and sometimes bluffs, or you want to go bigger to have bigger bluffs and get bigger value. That's basically what you want to do. So a bit smaller with that one on the river. Betting's fine, but I would bet a smaller size, 10 to 30% I would suggest. Again, king 7 mixed. You could probably get away with 3-betting at a very small frequency with king 8. That's more of a deep stack thing, but you can get away with it. Micros also 100. Queen 10 off. So against the 3x in the hijack, we're mainly looking to fold. I would suggest potentially have a very small amount of 3-bet, but definitely 3-bet or fold. I would suggest folding. I don't mind at all, especially against the 3x. Pocket aces. Okay, so again, just I try not to pause the video, but this is so I just want to say it, like, this is not you blundering in terms of like playing the game, you know, learning the game, learning the fundamental basics, practicing on NL2. The last thing you're going to do is try and follow a solver strategy. Fair enough. The only point I'm going to make is, just as a thing, again, you range, what you'll start to try and figure out is your range doesn't really want to bet this flop. You're against a condensed range. You can bet this, but if you were going to bet it, I mean, you would bet small, because you're in this position, right? I don't know how to say this without sort of sounding like a bit of an entitled lord, but I would suggest that just most of your range, again, just doesn't hit this board. The button shouldn't really have a 4 much either. So you don't have to bet small. You can go kind of really large also. It's more of a concept against like the small blind, where you do like a lot of overbet and check, and against the big blind you do a lot of small bet and check. Against the button, I would prefer just to check, and then play calls and raises and faults with my range rather than lead into it, just because again, you've got so many hands. You're not going to be punished for it at this level, but it's just a case of villains will bet because you've checked. Also, you don't really have many hands that want to bet this, so you would look to protect them, and you don't need to be protected at NL2. I get it, I understand, but it's really, really good practice. As I'm literally backseating these videos and coaching them, I just want to give more of a solver approach, at least as a bit of a background. But really, we should be checking here because so many hands want to check this board and they don't want to bet and get raised and get called and not know what to do on the turn. So really, I'd just like to see a check raise on this flop rather than a lead. And if I was going to bet it, I'd probably bet a bit bigger as well, because the 4 doesn't interact with the button really at all. It's going to be like ace 4 and 4-5 at a very low frequency, and they both prefer to 3-bet or just fold. So yeah, anyway. So what happens now is we develop a dynamic where we get to a lot of turns and it gets very awkward. Your hand, because you're in a single raise pot, you don't need to have a spade to bet. And I like the fact that we're betting big, actually, because we're quite polarized. You are getting called by plenty of hands that are worse than you. 6-7 of diamonds, pocket eights with or without a spade, like ace jack with a spade, ace queen with a spade if they don't 3-bet, 9-10, 9-10. I'm trying to think if there are any other gut shot type. Maybe 5-6 of clubs, maybe sometimes, with the open ender, potentially. And then also, just a 7, things like this. Checking wouldn't be that great. I like betting. I like it a lot. So now you've got 2 options. Because you this is more of an advanced thing, but because you unblock the ace of spades, you technically allow your villain, by checking, to go, haha, you checked. I've called you to realize my flush draw. I didn't get there, but I've got the ace of spades blocker. You've checked. I now want to bet really, really big on this river and have bluffs, which go with my flushes. So, and full houses. So you can actually check. If you had aces with a spade, I prefer you to bet. Because aces without a spade, I actually prefer you to check and potentially induce some big bluffs from villain, like king, queen with a spade, ace jack with a spade, ace queen with a spade. In this population, they also have like ace 10 with a spade. Or you just bet big again, but it's very difficult to get called with a big size here. You'd kind of prefer to have a spade to go for this super huge size. So checking here to induce a bluff / control the pot size is probably better, because villain, if he has 9s and 10s, he's probably just going to bet. Or he should bet, really. If he's going to have a bluff, like we said, ace x with a spade and so on, he's going to bluff. He can still have 7s, 4s, deuces, 8s as well, so we can still have full houses. And also, if we do get raised, it's really awkward because we've got aces with no spade, and our range doesn't really want to block here anymore either. So you have a very strong hand. I don't mind betting here for like 60%. I don't mind checking. I don't really mind either or as played. Again, you're getting away with a small size or a smaller size than you should do, and you're getting away with it, which is okay. But really, again, I would just be looking to have bluffs here for around 60-70%, and this is value, and then probably just folding to raise in this population, rather than sort of going a kind of small, weakish size, because you induce bluffs. So you have to be careful, and that is a thing exploitatively as well. Okay, so again, very quickly, sorry, I feel like I'm dismantling you, but like king, queen, 5, we do a lot of checking out of position, like we said, against a condensed range, the button, the small blind, etc., the cutoff. But king, queen, 5 is so good for the early position, the hijack. We just have more kings and ace king, like a lot more. We have more king, queen off, because villain should really be 3-betting that, at least theoretically. Also, just doing well overall is very difficult for villain to call with a lot of hands. So really, we shouldn't be looking at ace queen, which is second pair. We should just be looking at the range on the board and just saying effectively range betting for, again, basically a 20 to 30% size, maybe some slightly medium sizes also, but just generally betting. This one would basically bet the flop and check the turn. That's effectively what it would do. I don't mind delayed c-betting. That is okay, but we should have just bet range on the flop. This one, debating whether this is actually strong enough to bet the river. No, I quite like checking the river here. I think we'd be targeting queen jack specifically, and I think you don't get called wide enough in this population. Maybe in a different population, but not in this one. So I like the idea to check the river. I think I would like to squeeze up the ace jack on table 1. So versus a naked 2.5x open, you'd be going around 13. So because there's a limp and this guy's ISO to 4, I would size up probably around 14.5, maybe 15, somewhere around there. Maybe 15.5, something like this. I don't mind 16. Yeah, close enough. Maybe slightly big, but it's still good. Any kind of really large polar size is nice. See what villain does. This one's going to be a pretty high frequency, medium to large size. Okay, so again, this is just me picking the bones because I can. Again, in terms of, so this is an unstudied thing rather than a studied line, is basically looking at the board. Forget that we have ace jack, just look at the board and the positions. Button opens. Yes, it was a squeeze, but or an isolate, sorry, but effectively the button's opening. We're 3-betting the big blind. We're very polarized. We've got like king 5 suited. We've got ace 4 suited. We've got like jack 7 suited. We've got king jack off. We've got kings, things like this. We have tens that we 3-bet basically all the time. Buttons, I mean, again, this is exploitative, but this is the basic logic, is really the pocket tens and the 10x region are more favorable for the big blind because we're 3-betting a hand like ace 10 and they're not calling it as much. We're 3-betting a hand like tens and they're mainly 4-betting it. And I know population will have tens more than they're supposed to, but that is the kind of logic. They can have eights and deuces, we can have eights sometimes, but not deuces. But then we've also just got jacks and queens and kings and aces that they don't. So we've got more like hands like king 10 off. We've got more hands like jack 10 off. We've got more hands like queen 10 off, king 10, ace 10. They have much less of those. They only have suited versions of those, maybe a small amount of ace 10, but they're still probably just folding that. So we're doing very well on this board. However, lots of our range does not hit this board. Like, you know, ace x suited, king queen, ace king, which is also the value part pre-flop of our range. Because it doesn't hit this as much, we're basically saying, look, we're going to go for a pretty medium to large size, sort of like 40 to like 90%, or we're going to be checking. That's what we're going to be doing. So this hand here blocks ace 10 suited, which is okay. You're wrapped around the 10 and the 8, so you've got some backdoor straight possibilities. Yeah, I mean, it can also come diamond, diamond, club, club. So yeah, I would basically be betting this pretty often, and I would be betting pretty medium to large. This smaller size allows villain to float and potentially bluff, which is not what we want. So if we bet like 15, 18, 20, 25, that's kind of what we're looking for. And then when we get called, sorry to jump sort of disrupt this hand, we'd now be looking to basically pure give up with this combination, because we do block ace 10 still, but we've picked up no equity whatsoever and we're only blocking one hand. So we'd really be looking to mainly give up this, and then a hand that's maybe like ace jack, say diamond heart would be a much better candidate to go ahead and continue betting the turn for around sort of 30 to 40% and then shoving river. Basically what the logic is you want multiple combos of top of range blockers. You want to block ace 10, you want to block jack 10, which is really important. This only blocks one combo, it blocks ace 10 of diamonds, but you're blocking ace jack of diamonds, you're blocking ace 4 of diamonds. Well, that's actually continuing on the turn technically, but you're blocking ace x diamond folds, you're blocking jack x club folds from villain. You want villain to have jack 9, queen jack, king jack of clubs. You want villain to have ace 10. You're also, villain's just gonna, like, you're kind of blocking folds and not blocking that much value. So really that's why we just give up now on the turn. So I would love to see a really, really nice big check from villain. You can do it. Yes, good check. And of course, you would now at home go, oh yeah, but what happens? We've 3-bet, we've bet the flop. Why are we just giving up? I don't care that I'm over bluffing. Well, we should do, but anyway, the candidates that we bluff with need reasons to bluff. And guess what you do? You give up a bunch to protect yourself. And guess what you do also? You have traps. Like, you can just have aces and kings and queens and just check the turn. You can just have 10s. You can have ace 10, king 10. You can have some like protected turn bets that don't really want to value bet either, like 9s. You can have a hand like 9-10 suited. You know, that can check. You can have a hand like ace 5 of clubs. that's got a pair and like that's ahead of a bunch of hands, and you can do a lot of things. You can also like sort of check shove some hands also. But the idea is, what I'm saying is, a lot of people are just like in a mentality where they're only betting to win, and their checks become pure folds. Whereas what you really need to do to become a really, really good winning player at any stake really is to kind of incorporate more of these like protected turn lines that aren't just bet. They're bet into check, but then you either induce bluffs from villain, or you have hands that can continue versus the bets. So yeah, so this one would just check fold, but yeah. Now I'd be looking on table 2. I would like to see against the button. I would say that we're calling decent amount of the time with a bunch of 4-betting, maybe 25-30% of the time. Calling is okay. Now I want to say something very quickly. I feel like I'm breaking into all these hands, and I apologize. I'm not letting the hands play as much. I kind of want to see. I'm not going to see it because this is NL2 and this is just a video. This is not a study GTO opponent hero, but this texture is extremely good to just lead for an extremely small size, because the hijack, yes, granted, it doesn't have like as much of these combinations of like hands that the button does in like a condensed 3-bet range, but what it does have, when you're talking about ranges, when we open early position and call a 3-bet, we're more condensed than the 3-better, because the 3-bet's going to have king queen off, he's going to have ace jack off. Yeah, he's going to have aces and kings and queens, but so we can have queens. Also, like, our range is so much more condensed of good suited Broadway cards, small to medium connectors that open and we'll call the 3-bet, and pocket pairs, that we actually can start leading these low textures. And the reason we do so, like, so for example, you lead here for say 1 big blind to say 3 big blinds, like sort of roughly 20%, is you're stopping villain from saying, I 3-bet you, I bet the flop, and if you missed, you fold. And if you call, I bet the turn, and you fold. And if you call, well, you probably got a good fucking hand. To stop you just getting into this mentality of just calling 3-bets and check folding, you want to understand when the leverage changes and the tables turn. So yeah, he can still have aces and kings more, but at the same time, he doesn't 3-bet 5s, 6s, 7s, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, a whole bunch. I can have those that open and call a 3-bet. So actually I can lead, which is an advanced concept, but that would be pretty awesome, and that was what I would do in this situation. But anyway, I'm assuming we're probably going to see a check. Yes, we do, because that's what we do. And what's probably going to happen is villain's going to bet range. Haha, he actually checked. But very, very often what happens is it goes check, it goes bet, and if hero doesn't hit the board, he folds. And then what happens is, without me spilling everything, is you end up folding a lot with the best hand, with the worst hand, regardless, and you just lose lots and lots of pots. Excuse me, I'm spilling everything everywhere. But yeah, so you want to try and avoid that dynamic. However, we've now smashed into this ace, which is really good. Excuse me. Right, so versus an extremely large size, we can look to check raise sometimes, because we do have effectively the top of our range here. Yes, we lose to a7, 5, and 6. We lose to ace king and aces, but we have one of the best hands. If there's a brick on the river and villain makes a big bet, we're not going anywhere. So you can have some turn bluff raises. You could have some flush draws. You could have some like weak hands, like trying to think of hands that are really, really good, because you don't really get here with a lot of naked 1 pairs that turn into bluffs. Suppose you could have a hand like pocket 3s or pocket 8s with heart. That's probably quite a good one to sometimes check raise. You could also just have like some flush draws some of the time. Anyway, you would be mainly calling though, don't get me wrong. As played, now we should be looking to check and continue. No. Okay, so what we want to do here, just very quickly, this is a bit important to note. You've got 2 options. The solver would suggest that you lead 10% here sometimes and check sometimes, because you basically, what it's saying is you could have king 10 of hearts. I'm going to give you an exact scenario. You've got a hand like queen jack of hearts. You've got king 10 of hearts. That's what you have. That's your exact holding. You're not going to win on showdown. Villain could have checked back and like delayed bluff the turn of say king queen off with a heart or something. You lead small, like 10%, and he just gets to fold. There you go. You win. You bluffed him. Excellent. What you mainly do though is just check, because your 7x would check and then shove and try and stack ace king, ace queen. That's what they would normally do, but you can lead 10%. But the idea is you primarily check, because also if villain's bluffing, you want him to keep bluffing. You're leading here with a huge size, which allows him just to fold his bluffs, which is not great. I'm not worried about losing to ace king. It's just a case of I want to check to allow him to bluff, and then he value bets or bluffs, and against the size I decide what I want to do versus it, and I can do some check raising, check calling, and check folding. That's what I want to happen. Leading here just looks really strong and is really unnecessary. If he's got ace jack, he would have just bet it himself. Betting to stop him checking back doesn't make any sense in this scenario, so I would have just checked. So the fact that he delayed bet and snap folded to your river lead, we've missed out on a bunch of value basically versus someone who could have bluffed. There we go. Sorry, I tipped my microphone out there. There we go. We'll carry on. Let's skip through this a bit. I want to make sure we get this done in the next sort of 15 minutes. So mostly calling the ace queen with some 3-bet. Against the 3x, I'm probably leaning towards the call, but 3-bet is okay at some small frequency. And I would be looking to mainly be range betting effectively on the ace low low for a very small to medium size. This is fine. Okie dokie. Okay. Let's skip through and see if I can find some spots. Going to be mixing 3-bet and call with the queen jack offsuit, table 1. Again, like that's more of a studied thing, so we're probably just going to be seeing lots of calls, but we will be, we would like to see a bit more 3-betting in the big blind. So as played, hero is probably going to have more 4x and 8x. In the big blind. Also, queen highs is not, we're losing to king highs and ace highs, so we want to be doing a lot of betting. I would suggest that we probably want to start sizing up a little bit, just because we want to be attacking. I don't want to bet really small into really small and just get called by ace high. I'd probably be looking to start betting the turn around sort of 60-70%. It's not awful to bet small, but I just think it's just easy for villain to call, and then it's more difficult to bluff the river. If I had an 8 or a 4, I'd probably be going bigger. I'd have bluffs and then obviously value. Against min raise, yeah, I'd just be folding. That just looks like a 4, to be honest. This is an exploitative thing, but when we have a really weak second pair versus a small blind lead, the recreationals have quite a lot of shit ace highs and like to lead them to see where they are at. So I actually kind of like overfolding the flop with the king 6. Turn a flush draw, so we're not going anywhere now. Facing check is just a clear check back. Imagine you bet. No, please don't bet, because imagine you bet and get check raised. What are we getting value from? What do we need to protect against? Do you know what I mean? If villain's got a king or an ace, he's not folding. So I don't care if he's got queen 10 or queen jack. He can still raise also. I just like trying to get to showdown. Now we've got kings up with an ace, so we're chopping against any king, still losing to an ace. There's no value to be attained here. We should just be looking to check back. We can't beat the board with the king, so I'm saying like we don't have an ace, for example. If it was like aces and deuces with a king, any aces are chopped. He's never folding an ace. We're losing to an ace. If we're betting a king, he's not folding a king. We're chopping with any king. We're losing now to a deuce, queen jack and queen 10. I mean, we beat those. We just want to check down. Don't really know what villain's got. It's very likely to be a very weak ace. We'll probably chopping with us with a king. King 10, king jack, ace 6, ace 7. It's probably likely villain's range. Then he folds. Don't know what he had. No idea, to be honest. I'm assuming this was a limp pot with a 10-7 offsuit. Okay. This is okay. Checking's fine. Betting a small to medium size table 2 is also fine. How have we got here with king 7 off? This is too loose. King 7 offsuit in the cutoff is too loose. You can have a7 off some of the time, but king 7 offsuit way too loose. And then again, effectively as played, you would be so this is a tough one because you don't have the gut shot blocker. I would just, yeah, I don't mind betting range for a small to medium size or checking. I think you could probably split and do both. Multi-way, yeah, I think I'm just check folding this with the king 7. I'm not looking to bluff. Now we're just trying to get to showdown. Not bluffing river either. You could argue that we represent kings, king, queen better, but just I'm not looking to try and make villains fold in this line. I would want a straight blocker in my hand from the off if I was going to start attacking the flop. I like the ISO here with ace queen. Sizing probably could, I mean, did he 3x? Yeah, okay, 11's fine. Okay. Easy opens here with both hands. I'd probably be mostly, again, I'd be looking to mostly just range bet table 1, but I suppose there is some argument for sometimes checking. I'd be mostly range betting just because ace king x is so good for UTG. The button will have some, like potentially ace king, ace queen, 9s, ace 9 suited. Not as much ace 9, but I'd probably just start with a very small range bet. As played, yeah, okay, fine. If we're checking, we can continue checking turn. I would like to see check raise now. Ugh. So we're just looking to get value from king jack, king 10, ace x, queen 10, any combo like a flush draw, jack 10 of diamonds, anything at all. You get value from loads of hands. You're trying to stack king 10, king jack, and potentially have bluffs. So you could potentially have, like, if you've got queen jack in this line, you'd want to be multi-street betting, whereas like king queen here, you want to be check raising the turn. This is not a hand that you'd be protecting. You'd rather check an ace than like a king queen here, for example. And now as played, because you've checked the turn, called the turn, sorry, I'd like to see a check on the river and then shove against flushes and potentially a straight. Yeah, this is a mistake to lead. This again just looks very strong. You're leading because you're scared of him checking back, which is not the mentality. You'd want to be checking into jam. Allow him to bet the king, allow him to bet a bluff, allow him to bet a flush, allow him to bet a straight, and then you just stick it in his eye. A7 suited. This again is just more of a study thing, but we would, on 9 deuce deuce against a condensed range, at a position, you're actually looking to just mainly check. You're not looking to bet at all. If you were going to bet, you'd be betting extremely big, like over bet, which is okay, but you'd be still prioritizing check. And then check call, because you'd want to just check call with ace high, backdoor flush draw, which is winning a lot of the time. Betting small, again, puts yourself in an awkward dynamic, because now what? Yes, you picked up a flush draw, excellent, but a lot of the time it's just going to be a very awkward turn dynamic, and you're just going to be in a very awkward situation. As played, I would now just continue betting the turn. Bet my flush draw. You want to put pressure on like 4s, 5s, 6s, ace jack of hearts, like ace jack of clubs. Also, you don't really want to get into a dynamic where you sort of bet the flop check call turn, because you can just get bluff now. Villain can have some combos. He could float you with like queen jack and things like this, and just bluff turn, and you're going to call, and then you're just going to check fold river. Whereas you'd want to bet the flop, bet the turn against a lot of hands. Now we just have a clear raise, in my opinion. Yeah. So something I want to say is, yes, I understand that. Like, now we're on. Like, I want to change this hand. Okay. Instead of betting small, we just check, and you check call. Okay, that's what you do, and then you realize your flush draw, and then you mainly check call the turn with some check raise. That's what I want to do, because you've bet the flop and checked the turn. You're showing so much weakness that you're allowing villain to just run over you. So because you got the flush draw, that's great, but you kind of want to just like fold out any bluff that villain's got and you're going to get value from. You're not really looking to value bet. That's the thing. You're semi bluffing here to attack like a weak pair. That's what you're doing, and also just to stop yourself from just calling to check fold rivers. So really, as played, I would prefer actually a check raise. Because what's going to happen here is if we don't improve, we're just going to check fold 100% of the time, and that enables villain to just do whatever he wants, either to bluff us, to value bet against us, and like a hand like this is exactly what we'd be targeting on the turn to fold, but with a check raise. We could have turned a 10, we could have turned a flush draw, we could have queen jack. Villain's got no idea what we've got. We put pressure on them, whereas instead we've check called and allowed villain to sort of like go for a mergy value bet against us. Okay. Open the queen jack off. Flop a gutty. Okay. So again, we like on the flop texture, this is more of a complex GTO thing. But you can actually kind of get away with anything you want here because the big blind is at a massive disadvantage. Yeah, you're both going to have loads of hands that have hit the board and missed. But the thing is, the big blind doesn't really have nines a whole bunch. They have eights really that much either. They should really be raising you a decent frequency. So they don't have any of the large pairs. Excuse me, there should be 3-betting, some like Jack 10 suited, Queen 10 suited, Queen Jack. And I know this is 2-0, but I'm just saying. So really the big blind should actually be saying, oh shit, this is a really bad board for me. And the small blind should be licking its chops and being able to do a lot of things. So for example, if I wanted to bluff gut shots, I could just go fucking massive. Absolutely massive, because the villain in the big blind can still have deuces, 8s, 9s, 8, 9. He can still have 9x. He can still have 10 jack and 6, 7. Hands like that will call, but like for example, Queen Jack, you could actually go like 300%. It's quite funny because what you can do is you can have him have a hand like 10-8, and he's ready to insta call anything you bet on the flop, and then you just go like 18. You know, and you can put massive pressure because he can't have the best hands and we can have all of it all the time. You just have aces, you can have 8s, you can have 9s, you can have 9-8 with him, you can have kings, you know, you can do loads of stuff. More generically, you would just bet any small to pot size. You could overbet, you could check call, you could check raise. You would more generically just bet. You would probably size up a bit on the board texture though. A small size isn't as favorable, but betting is still good. My problem with this hand is when we get to the turn. Now I'm going to say something. A lot of your ace-x doesn't bet this board unless it's very, very high ace-x, like ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, or it's wrapped around, so it could have like ace-10. You could sometimes have ace-7, backdoor flush draw, but not that many ace-x unless it's like a pair. So for example, if we block the flop, and then you want to continue betting the turn, you would now go for a large size. So for example, a gut shot with a club is fucking amazing. We block Jack 10, we block Queen 10, you block Ace Jack offsuit, you block Queen 9, you block flush draw combos like Queen 7 of clubs, like things like this. Really, this is a really good candidate to bet the turn. So even Ace Queen is technically in villain's range also at a low frequency. Just overbet the turn and nuke out all of these like one pair hands under the ace and put fucking massive pressure on. At the very least, just bet the turn for any size because you need to put pressure. You're very polarized. You go large, you wouldn't go small. But some parts of your range can go small. But just for sake of argument, this doesn't. This wants to go big. Don't check. You've got queen high. You've got no showdown value. You've got a straight draw. You can represent clubs. Big scary ace. Like don't check and let him bluff 5, 6, 6, 7. All his floats get to bet and win. Don't let him just bet and win. Bet yourself and take the pot down. This is just going to go check, bet, fold, isn't it? Yeah. There we go. We overbet the turn, bonk. We either win or we bluff some clubs or make a straight. That's what we want to see. Yeah, this is a clear mistake. We shouldn't be defending the Jack 6 offsuit. Again, sorry to sound somewhat blunt, but this is a fold. Very easy fold. Leading range. No, I'm not leading range actually on deuce 6. I'd mainly be. I suppose you could argue for a little bit of betting, but villains over pairs are 2 pairs. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. I'm talking out my ass. Sorry. Deuce. I suppose we do have technically more deuces in the button to defend, like 4 deuce suited, 5 deuce suited. So you could lead actually. No, this is fine. Sorry, it's late, talking out my arsehole. I would like to see a continue on the turn for a small size. Okay, maybe a bit smaller than this. You're just basically protecting your hand, getting value from 5s, 4s, 3s, a weaker 6x. No, actually 6x is just a chop with a 9, to be fair. I suppose you'd be 10-6 suited, but you're basically protecting against overcards, and then you'd have some traps. You would mainly sort of overbet the turn now because it's the turn. A 9, for example, you can't have a 2 pair that's better than villain. Villain's going to have 9s and then 10s, jacks, queens, kings, aces. So you would kind of leverage into overbet and check on the turn somewhat. But because you led the flop, you know, there are also some small sizings that you can do. And this is a good candidate to do so, to get a bit of value and protection. And then you'd be looking to check the river and hope that villain would check back his like ace highs, and then he'd have some bluffs and you can have some bluff catches. This... trying to debate if this would be a bluff catcher. Yeah, I think you could probably get away with this. When you block pocket 6s, you unblock like 4-5, you unblock any diamond combo. Villain's representing a hand like Queen X of diamonds, slow played pocket 9s, a deuce, but rare, and you block 6s. So yeah, I mean, he's giving you a pretty decent price. I probably would catch this one. You don't have to, but you know, I probably would. Unfortunate, but okay, I think. Skip through these. Okay, so what's going on here with the King 7? Opening's fine, flop top pair and a flush draw. King low, I'd be probably just betting a decent amount. Checking is okay, I suppose. This candidate, I suppose you could mix some check raises and check calls. Villain can just have a better king. You probably want to... I would suggest in this pool especially just check calling. I think check calling is the best one. If I had a worse hand pair and flush draw, maybe I'd be aggressive. A weak top pair just wants to allow villain to have bluffs and make mistakes. Now, as played, we're looking to check the river and then check shove. Nice and easy. Excellent. So we get a bet, and now we want to be sticking it in his eye. It's not easy to have bluffs, but you could sometimes, for example, if we check call the flop, check turn, we could have a hand like pocket 4s with a heart that can now check shove. You could have some backdoor floats that could turn into bluffs, I suppose, some of the time. Like you could have like ace jack off with the ace of hearts, for example. That's a good one. You could stick that in his eye. You could sometimes have a hand like ace deuce of clubs. Maybe you check raise that some of the time. Things like this. But flushes absolutely need to be in your check jam range. Perfect. Yeah, we like it. Nice. Opening the kings, get 3-bet, we 4-bet. Okie dokie. Yeah. Trying to fade aces. We don't. Sedge. Flop a set, table 1. Check raise, pure. Bigger. Be going like 12, 14. I mean, any kind of check raise is good, but we want to be check raising larger. Jammed on, not thrilled, but not upset either. Just calling, not folding a set. Hoping he's got like 5-6 of clubs. Queen 9 offset. Okay, well, we're going to win that one. Makes up for the aces and kings. Okay. So this one, this is an ISO, isn't it? I'd be betting king a8 a lot for a small to medium size. Also, we're just value betting. Because you've checked, I don't mind deceptively checking turn to allow villain to bluff. You know, maybe he's just got some complete jargon and bets. Also, you allow him to potentially catch up with an ace, which is nice. Maybe he gets counterfeited with low under pairs and starts to bluff. That's really good. So I like check calling, actually. Check calling would be pretty sexy. Not check raising, but check calling. And now, because it's gone check, 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 I just want to bet relatively big, maybe get called by ace high. That's about it, really. Not a big fan of checking this one. Well, we've got the pot size. I would assume this is a bluff, if I had to guess. This looks like a complete bluff. You are obviously raising now, but it's very difficult to get called by worse. But for the sake of it, we're still going to do it. 27, 28. I wouldn't go too big. You want to give him the option to make some kind of weird spaz bluff back at you. Because you don't really get called by worse. Not thrilled with getting shoved on, but not folding. This guy is trying to turn a nut flush blocker into a bluff on a double paired board. Weird keg. Anyway, that's just a pure check back on the flop. Sorry, on the river. But there you go. Nines is not the best bluff catcher because you block a lot of like Jack 9, King 9 type combos. I think we just have to overfold versus overbet. Well, not even overfold. We just have a 10. We have a queen. We have some hands that are unblocking some of the draws. I think nines is okay to fold. Raise call, get squeeze in the big blind. I would suggest I was gonna say 4-bet or fold in this population. Because, can I just say something? The big blind is the scariest place to get 3-bet from in micro stakes by far. I would not 4-bet this position, even though your hand it's a great spot to 4-bet. To 4-bet win. I like the sizing as well. You could even potentially go slide. No, actually no. I think the sizing's spot on. To be fair, I just think there's just not enough bluffs. I think there's just not enough folds. I don't mind the sneaky check back with a king 10 on table 1, and then I'd be blasting big, like it. Trying to get called by an ace, have bluffs. Okay. I suppose just closing my eyes and calling table 2. Okay. And that's it. All right then, guys. Thank you so much. Please like, please comment as always. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.